So I ended up getting in. I don't know if I could say this publicly.
Yeah, I was tied up that day, and I gave you my credentials. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I did, and I got you in.
It was just to see Gary speak, and then I left. I didn't do any deals, I swear. But I actually kind of cut work that day. I was in sales, so I, had a bit of a free schedule, and I went because I was dying to ask Gary a question, and I managed to be like the second person up on stage after his talk and asked him a bit about life and the situation I was in, and basically said,
welcome everybody. It's David Chinelli here with the DC Talks podcast, episode 49, right?
Yeah.
What's so special? What was I saying? That's special, right?
It's awesome. It's the best number, I think. I was like, why wasn't I 50? It's all good. I'm very happy to be here. Very blessed. Thank you for having me.
And if you're just listening in, who is on the mic is my good friend, Mike Austin. We've known each other for what, 15, 16 years, 17 years, something like that. Long time.
Yeah. I've been here in this country for about that time now. So
yeah.
He's
an American, in case you haven't figured that out. So we'll take you for now. So a little bit of history of who Mike is. So Mike, obviously you have like a big production company. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but Mike and I, we came to know each other through our wives. They worked at Guest together back in the day. And I think one of the first time I met you was actually at your wedding.
I think it was. The only thing I can recall was like a party, one of those event parties, and I had met you there. That's my earliest recollection. But obviously my wedding, I don't remember much of, or I should say the reception part.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But you were there, and a couple other people from the Guest family that I still know to this day. It's amazing how, through the years, how we retain those relationships.
Yeah, it was great. So, and then we became to know each other. Like when I started in real estate, like you're doing some other things. I think you're doing some architectural lighting. Is that what happened? Like,
yes.
Yeah. And you were kind of fooling around a little bit with cameras and stuff too. And then I thought I had an idea like, oh, okay, great. So would you be interested in doing some short videos with me? Remember we did around San Remo. You did some short clips for me. Remember those back in the day? Like
Speaking of, I got to stop there on the way out of town. Oh my gosh, San Remo.
Oh, what a great bakery! Yeah. And you got to go visit my buddy Revolver too. The Revolver Pizza's like 2 doors down. You had the pizza.
Lunch is coming up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So shout out to Revolver Pizza too. Yeah. So and then from there, I think this is when video started to come in and make a big splash in real estate, where people were talking videos. And I did a couple of tried to get some of our real estate videos, and they weren't really doing what I wanted to. I wanted to talk in the videos. And then I approached you and said, hey, would you, I don't know if you do this, but would you be willing to do, we did 2 videos together. We did on 82 Government Road, and we did another one on Barrie Road. Where you did the walkthrough video for me.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time you did with a realtor, the videos?
Those were my first 2 ever real estate videos, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I was under the gun for pressure. I'm like, oh man, I can't mess this up.
Not for
Dave.
Me.
Yeah,
it's
my boy. I can't mess this up. But no, they considering I was a complete beginner in that space, I thought they came out pretty decent. But did the house sell?
Of course, they both did.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. And I think honestly, it was able for me to market them, and then from that, it kind of spring loaded. Like I think other photography companies, because of what they saw what you did and what other people were doing, they started incorporating that into now their videos. Now I see a lot of realtors doing that. But yeah, I think we were a little bit of pioneers back in the day.
I hope so. But, that especially down in the US, like that style of real estate video, it really started to blossom around that time. And it still is now. Like I think the face-to-face on video for any industry is super important. We want to know who we're buying from. We'll go online, we'll do our research, our Google reviews, but we really want to know what that company is about, and that they're not just hiding behind somebody. We want to know the face, and real estate's the perfect, transportation for that with media content. So yeah, I definitely think you knocked it out of the park, starting with that. And what I admire so much about you, not only are you a great guy, I got to throw that out there, Thanks. But no, your consistency with everything. You are one of very few people that I know that have been super consistent over the years with your content. It's a very, very hard thing to do. And that's me coming from my background. I can't even achieve that level, and I'm in this business.
Oh, before you get into that, we didn't even mention your name of your company. So 20 Valley Media.
Yeah, 20 Valley Media. We are down in the Niagara region. So basically, I'm owner operator of the company. It's a little startup that kind of blossomed. It was a dream. You had mentioned the lighting space that I was in, so I can, I guess, maybe dive into my career.
Talk how 20 Valley Media was born, because you went from a totally different space into like a great media production. By the way, and if you've ever watched my 12 shops of remember we did the 12 pubs we started with me with that 1 year of South Etobicoke. Michael videoed those for us.
A lot of drinking that day.
A lot of drinking. Yeah, like we had we did it over like 3 or 4 days. Remember, that was hard. We had the kids in school and stuff. That was hard. Yeah. And then the last couple of years we did the 12 shops of Bloor West. We did that. This year took, obviously with the podcast, it's taking a little more time, so we're going to replay those. But anyway, so how did you go from architectural lighting into the space, and how was the transition?
Yeah. So just to give some, context to this, because, this story could go on forever, of course, but basically I at an early age, I had a love for making videos, and, just like a lot of documentaries, you'll start with the early childhood of someone and you'll see what they used to do. And that if you can visualize that was kind of me with my friends. We'd make all sorts of little videos on the little handy cam, the Sony handy cam, which I just bought one recently off a marketplace. So if you have a old camera, hang on to it, because it's worth a lot of money.
Really?
So I've been trying to convert our old tapes back over into digital now, and it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I had a love for that, and through the years, I always kind of gravitated towards things with technology. So my brother was a sports guy. He was into all the mainstream sports, and I was more of the counterculture. I was doing, aggressive inline skating and surfing. Like, I grew up in Florida around the beach, so I was kind of in that vibe. And I got into DJing at an early age. So I DJ'd at a church group, actually, and then that rolled into like DJing at an under 18 club. My family moved to Atlanta, so I was doing that for a while. And then the club actually needed some maintenance on their lighting system. So I got into the fog machines and the moving lights and all that stuff, and helped them, clean them and maintain them, and learned under their in-house DJ there, and got into that whole scene. DJ'd at a couple other clubs, and then basically a Halloween came up where my mom came in and she gave me this Music Factory magazine. Music Factory is a company out of New York, and they sold turntables and mixers and vinyl. And I was like, man, this is the sickest magazine I've ever seen. So I'm like wanting to buy all this stuff. So next thing I know, we were in Pensacola at the time in Florida. That's where we were living. And my mom was a high school teacher, and one of the ladies she worked with in her family and consumer sciences division was making clothing for Roy Jones Jr., the boxer. So Roy Jones Jr. used to live in Pensacola, and this lady would sew all of his boxing outfits, basically. So she told my mom that he was opening basically a music store in Pensacola. So we went for the opening one night. It was cold. It was Christmas time, just about. And we get there. We're waiting for his arrival. We wait outside for like 2 hours. He never shows.
Come on.
Never shows. So something happened. And so anyways, long story short, we do end up going into his store. My mom buys this like digital baby grand piano, and I happen to buy like turntables and a mixer and a box kit. I'm like, I'm going to be a DJ. So I got into that. Next thing I know, I'm buying a fog machine for our front porch and Halloween, and like all these lights for the house. And through high school, I had, crazy parties and all this fun stuff. So that's kind of how I got into that world. And fast forward through college, went to a technical school down in Florida by the name of Full Sail. And I have a degree, one-of-a-kind degree in show production and touring. So I actually went to school to learn how to put on rock concerts.
Come on. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really cool school. They have like game design and recording arts and like all that. But so fast forward again, I was in the production world out of school for a bit down in Orlando. And then a buddy of mine called me up one day and was a bit under the weather and hating his job. And he was like, yo, I'm working on a cruise ship, and I just need you to come take over for me because I've gotten into some stuff with the cruise director and I'm fired. And I was like, what? So literally 2 days later, Carnival's flying me out to Fort Lauderdale to hop on a ship. And literally that night, I'm running a full-on production show with no training, other than my buddy on the phone who was quarantined to his room because he got in trouble. And he's literally telling me over the phone how to run the show.
Come on.
So that was my full on introduction into the cruise world. Did that for a couple of years and did basically audio, video, and lighting ship wide. Worked my way up to a senior position, started doing training and handovers. And after a couple of years of that, decided to get away from it because it's the lifestyle there is pretty tough. Especially the food. That was a big thing for me. But one of the best things that happened was I met my wife.
I was going to say, I was hoping that was going to pop in there. Yeah.
So my wife was a dancer, and so I had...
Wasn't she an Argo girl at one point too?
Yeah, she was Argo cheerleader at one point. Yeah. So from Toronto, and she started going through school. I think she was at Ryerson, and she took a break to go out on the cruise ships. And, everybody wants to travel the world and do that. So, and
you should. At a young age, I think that's great. As long as if you're working on the cruise ship, did you actually get to go out and enjoy the places you went to see?
All the time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, just making sure. Well, here's some horror stories of these cleaners where they have like no time and they're working 7 days. They actually don't have time, but you got to experience where you guys went. That's amazing. Yeah.
So we are known as like the entertainment group is kind of known as cruise staff. The casino host can fall under that. Basically any position that's very customer facing, you're in cruise staff. So you've got a lot of luxuries and liberties that other people don't.
Gotcha.
On the ship don't necessarily have. So with that being said, we did that for a couple of years, and literally my second night in the crew bar, I ran into my now wife, and it was love at first sight, and the $1.25 beers and $1.75 mixed drinks helped for sure.
Give it a little liquid courage.
Yeah, it's just like a nonstop party on the ship. So you do it for a while, and we went to so many amazing places, mostly Eastern, Western Caribbean. We did with Carnival for 2 years. But after that, basically we were dating, and she gave me the ultimatum to come up to Canada. And I said, well, here we go. So I hopped in, I bought a 4Runner, grabbed my laptop, came across the border, and here we are 17-ish years later. I actually just got my Canadian citizenship probably 7-8 months ago now. So I'm officially Canadian citizen, which I'm super pumped for. But all this, my history has just culminated to where I'm at now. Let me back up. So after coming up here, got back into production, worked at the old Docks and Sound Academy and Claire Brothers, Tower Show Co. They're like big sound companies up here. And decided to get out of that because it's a lot of late night hours. You're working in an industry, right?
Yeah, I remember some points we were going to see you, like we were selling your place and you were still working. And I remember one time I went to see it was like at 10 o'clock at night, you were just leaving. And I'm like, it was insane. It was like those hours could not be good. And you hadn't even started a family at that point. So I can just imagine like what the hours were like. You're like, screw this.
And as you get older, for some people you get tired of it and it's cookie cutter sometimes. And that's not me and my personality. So I got out of it and happened to get into the architectural lighting field. I forget exactly how, but it was for my love of like color changing lighting per se.
Yeah, you had that on your island. Remember that too? On Annie Craig, which we talked about Amy the other day. Like you were. So for those who tune in, Mike and I were talking about this. So if you remember that Dexter story we talked about where Amy was here and we were talking about how we had plastic because you had the crazy tenants. Mike was the owner of that property.
That was us.
So that was Mike and Nadia. Yeah, I remember that. That was
the weirdest thing ever.
That was the weirdest thing. Hey, again, those guys helped us, knock out of the park. We broke a record that day. But anyway, that was but anyway, I remember looking at that island and you showing me all these cool things and everything was automated before automation was even a thing. I remember that was, you're always high tech and I love that about you.
And I was just kind of, again, being in all that stuff at a young age and I found out, wow, I can do this professionally. So basically I worked in the architectural lighting field, but doing lighting and controls. So controls for energy efficient buildings. So you see all these towers downtown with the lights on 24/7. We might have systems in them that will dim down the lights when sunlight comes in the windows. That's for like daylight harvesting, or what I did mostly was branding and marketing through illumination. So everyone knows the CN Tower downtown. It's got all those digitally controlled the CN Tower downtown.
What's the CN?
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, this big tower needle downtown that has the lights on it.
At one point was the largest freestanding building in the world, and now the one in Dubai's beat it. But anyway,
so those systems that are on that, I basically sold those, programmed them, and worked with electricians in the field to commission them, get them started and going. And I was the forward-facing client relations person for a lot of these multi-million-dollar projects. I've got a lot of the color-changing buildings that you see downtown. I had a hand in at one point or another. Actually, the company I was with did have a big part in the CN Tower. That was a long time ago now. But so that was a very fun career, illustrious career. I did that for almost a decade. But also along the time, we wanted to start a family and get out of the hustle and bustle of the city. And so about a year after we had our first child, I was doing a commute down to the Niagara region. We live in Grimsby now, and which you helped us out and find that amazing house, by the way. Yeah. And I was like in traffic one day. It was a 2-hour plus drive back home, which was common. And I started getting like lightheaded and foggy, and I was stressed and anxiety. I was on a project till like 2 a.m. the night before, and work was demanding. And I was like, you know what, man, I shouldn't feel like this. This is not right. And I had been thinking about starting something on my own for a while because, at the time that you kind of alluded to with the real estate videos, I had picked up a camera again and started doing things for some friends, and got calls saying, hey, we saw this. Can you do something for us?
But you also had that great, remember the Humber Bay Shores video you guys did together, which had all those views. And I think it was before you even went live. Was it before 20 Valley you did that, or was it after 20
Valley?
That
was definitely before 20 Valley.
And it was like, that was what inspired me to say, I think you can do some videos for me. It's not the same scale. So what was that video again? It was about the Humber Bay Shores you and Nadia had, because you guys were paddling, and there was about
So that was just like a fun kind of hobby video. So I had just bought a drone because that was the craze back then. And both my wife and I, we did a lot of paddling. So we would do professional paddleboard racing here in the city. We also surf on all the Great Lakes, and we just wanted to document a bit more of those experiences. That particular video was me, my conservation side, showing this amazing waterfront that we have here and how it's not really taken care of. And, people have this stigma. If you go in Lake Ontario, you're going to grow a third leg or
I lived there my whole life. I thought that. And when you're like, I'm like, you guys are paddleboarding there? Isn't that dangerous? And you're like, no. I'm like, and you lived 10 minutes away from where I lived. I'm like, we go there every day. I'm like, are you kidding me? I had no idea that you were actually able to go in Lake Ontario. Same thing. I thought the same thing So you opened up my eyes too. I had no idea.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, because we'd always have that conversation with people. And Toronto back in its heyday, if you look up historical photos of like Sunnyside Beach here as an example, there was thousands and thousands of people. Now you're lucky to see a dog in the water because people are terrified, which they have good reason to, because especially in the summertime, which is the only time that the water is really monitored by the city, which is still very lax monitoring. Usually E. coli levels are through the roof, and there's a lot of runoff and spill, any drainage from the streets. People pour paint buckets down the sewers. There's fertilizer, car oil. That all basically makes its way out to the lakes at one point. And this is all the Great Lakes, both U.S. and Canadian side. So we're in the water so much that we'd get the occasional ear infection, or you'd smell fertilizer when you're out in the water surfing, and you start to pay attention to it, right? So you just want to kind of spread the word. And so that's what that video is about, basically.
And that, so a little bit before, this is before COVID, because we're going to talk a little bit what happened in COVID, because you pivoted as well. Yeah. So you were doing videos and how did that start? So with me and then other people, you started to get in business that, it just kind of went full blown. And it also helps. I always say to people too, if you're going to start a business on Entrepreneur, it's always good to have one of the spouses having a steady income just in case. It does help. It's very important. Yeah. So Nadia, I had that too, also have benefits and stuff as well. It helps. So it helped you propel into that. And so for the first couple of years, how were you getting clients? How was it the transition?
Yeah, the transition was a very difficult one. But I'm also very blessed to have my partner, my wife, to help me with that transition. Because if I didn't have her, I wouldn't be here for sure.
And we talk about that a lot. It matters the spouse and the person you're with. And there has to be, you have to work with each other, right? Yeah. You can't be fighting all this stuff. Like it just doesn't make sense. But I agree.
Yeah. So like prior to COVID, that maybe year and a half or so, and I was kind of doing it as a side hustle, still working. professionally, just slowly building up. I knew I wanted to get to it. And, here's my goal. I'm just going to hop on the Gary Vee train and get motivated as shit and like, just go for it. And, actually, speaking of Gary Vee, a lot of people love him, hate him. If you don't know who he is, check him out. But he was really my catalyst.
So Michael is the one that gets me, it's got me started on all of these trends. You're the one that introduced me to TikTok. You're the one who introduced me to Gary Vee. You're the one who's like, so you're like, yeah, I don't know that's good or bad. So yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk, obviously motivation talks about people, how to start businesses, how to, break out of the mold. I think that's like, he's huge on TikTok. He's huge on YouTube. Like he's just I guess a video personality. He talks about how you can make money off of garage sale, which is a huge one. He
flipping sports cards and Beanie Babies. Yeah. He's like the true entrepreneur.
I love his thing too. He even talks about what the issue we have with our educational system. Yeah. Like, for example, like today, I was listening, it's 98.1 because I listen to the Christmas music. I like Christmas music. It's one of those things.
It's November 29th.
Yeah, I started listening to Christmas music middle of November. Anyway, and they're talking about now, it's like, I heard about how Taylor Swift has a new, they have a new courses at university for Taylor effing Swift.
Really?
What the fuck are you going to use Taylor Swift for your education, for your business after you graduate university? How is that a degree? So what I started thinking of, I'm thinking of Gary Vaynerchuk just shaking his head, is like those parents that are paying $100,000 for their kids to go to school, or you're getting a loan for $100,000 and you're learning about Taylor Swift.
Okay. You get Taylor Swift or Jordan Peterson's university. Which one you want to attend?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, is like, it just shows like, so Gary talks about how the system's a little bit broken. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to digress. So I just want to interject with the two things.
Definitely look into him if you're not familiar with him. But anyways, he was my catalyst, my motivation to get to, that beginning stage. And side note on that, he was coming to, so I was listening to him for a while. He was coming to a real estate conference here in Toronto. And I happened to call you and say, Dave, are you going to this thing? And you're like, no, I'm not, but
let me know.
I can maybe get you in.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting in. I don't know if I could say this publicly.
Yeah, I was tied up that day, and I gave you my credentials. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I did, and I got you in.
It was just to see Gary speak, and then I left. I didn't do any deals, I swear. But I actually kind of cut work that day. I was in sales, so I, had a bit of a free schedule, and I went because I was dying to ask Gary a question, and I managed to be like the second person up on stage after his talk and asked him a bit about life and the situation I was in, and basically said, fucking go for it. Like straight up. That was it. And I needed to hear that. Oddly enough, it wasn't over a podcast or TikTok or whatever. I had to personally hear it for some reason. It was super weird. And then I was like, for some reason, compelled to take off my shoe and have him sign it. Because I
remember that. Yes.
Bought a pair of his shoes. I'm like, this means so much to me. I was like such a fanboy. It was so weird. But anyways, I have his shoe proudly like on my shelf at home, signed, and that was my motivation piece. I needed that.
Well, do you still once in a while, do you look at that shoe as motivation if you feel like, well, because I find like there's pieces that I have. So there's certain things that I use as motivation. So it's like, it's funny, like, when I was having a huge car payment, I was up to, it mattered because like every time I got one in my car, I would be reminded like, you got to work today.
Yeah.
Like I wear nice watches, a couple of nice watches I bought because the reason why I put them on. And like, it is a subconscious reminder to me that you got to put on your boots and work today.
Yeah.
Do you use that shoe as a motivation as well?
I do. I see all these things, and I'm a collector too. I love to collect stuff, and it's just another ring in the ladder for me that I know that I got to that, and it's motivation to get to the next thing, the next day, the next whatever. Yeah. And especially for me, I suffer with seasonal depression, always have. From the day when I moved here to Canada, I grew up in Florida, used to the sun all the time, and this time of year now is the hardest in life for me. Yeah. So
we find a lot of people who are getting depressed and this stuff. So what my doctor suggested doing, because again, I've suffered from like, low points in my life too. We talk about that too, mental. Have you tried one of those? Do you use one of those lights that, like I said, in the morning?
The sad lamps.
Yeah. So I use it in the morning. When I pray in the morning, I know you're not huge into God and stuff too, but I like praying. Like this morning, for example, I put on for 15, 20 minutes while I'm praying, while I'm reading the Bible. And I find that the absorption gives me in a better mood in the morning. It does. So do you use anything like that for help with your seasonal depression?
I do. Actually, I'm like on the extreme end of that. So coming from the lighting and controls industry, I actually, for a while, I don't have it now at this house, but at our condo, I had a full blown sunrise and sunset system in my bedroom. So it would literally, color changing lights would mimic the sunrise colors all the way into midday, 12 o'clock. It'd be super bright, stark white, daylight light.
And that's amazing.
And then back down to sunset. So I had the luxury of having those systems in my bedroom and played with that stuff. But it was all.
Annie was okay with that?
Oh, well, she had to be. So it's like deal with like super upset, depressed Mike that day, or do you want a happy husband?
I get it. No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that everybody has. I've now learned it's something that everybody has, but to like what degree. And so yeah, it's a conversation that I'm always happy to talk about, and I have little tips and tricks for how I've gotten through it.
So what are like one of the tricks I've heard works for me, and during COVID was a hard thing, and I've heard this before, you go away for a vacation, and when it's like the middle, like I like to go January, February, because that's when you start to get more and more depressed. And the suggestions, depending on your skin type, because I know you've had skin cancer, which we can talk about that as well. But when you go there, depending on your skin type, the lighter your skin, you need less amount of time. The darker your skin, for example, for like myself, there's like go out in the sun at least up to 20 minutes without any sunscreen, anything too, and it absorb the vitamin D on a daily basis. And when you go back, your mood changes because your body then absorbs that sun, because we're lacking vitamin D, and that's where a lot of the depression comes from. Yeah. So that's one of the tricks we've been doing. Obviously, during COVID, we couldn't do it. We just went back last year to Mexico. We're going again this year to Mexico, which is I'm like looking forward to. It also gives you something to look forward to. So that also helps with your mood. What's one of your tricks that you use?
Yeah, definitely all of that. I'm big now on vitamin D3, K12, some certain vitamins that our bodies don't produce or get naturally. Definitely being outside in the morning, even if it's an overcast, gloomy day, you're still getting UV rays from the sun. So go outside and absorb nature. Be in nature, meditate. That's especially with kids now. That's one thing I have to do is break away and have that time. Working out has been a big proponent. I'm still trying to get on that bandwagon to be super proficient with it. But being a business owner, I'm pulled in so many different directions. And with two kids, I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old. I just try and get in what I can when I can. And working out, a little bit of cardio every day has been huge. Well,
that's the thing is I've been posting lately. I'm getting more of these motivation stuff too. And it's like, even if it's not the getting in shape, it's like that helps you with the workout. It helps with depression. It helps set a schedule. It also helps you give you me time. So what I do is I don't answer, I used to answer calls during workouts. I don't do that anymore. So I try to work out. You asked me this morning, did you work out? I'm like, of course, like it's the first, like I work out 6 days a week. And the reason why it helps, I'm like, I can also just say to my clients, no, I'm not talking right now. You can wait another half hour. Like I said, I put it on, just do not disturb. I listen to my Christmas music. And I actually listen to Christmas music when I'm working out, believe it or not. That's how I heard this morning. It's only in November, December. As soon as December 26th hits, no more Christmas music. But I find that like, not only the fact that you work out, but you set that time for yourself.
Yeah. Super important.
It's super important because you're also setting your mentality saying, I'm doing this for me. The other thing is that they're saying, isn't it better like to be like, it's not always about aesthetics, how you look. And it's like, think about it in 10 years from now, like you're going to have more bone density, like just strength and stuff too. You're able to do more in 10 years if you start today.
Yeah.
Right. In 10 years, I was like, you're always going to be behind. So I think it's huge that you're doing that.
And especially being a father now, that's, something that I think more and more of every day is I want to be here for my kids forever. And I need to be the best version of myself in so many ways so that they can be the best versions of themselves. So, and it's all trickles in, and, I'm almost 40 now, and it's taken me a long time to get here. And for most people, they're already like, yeah, man, I'm 18. I already do this. I know all this stuff. And that's great. And I'm so glad that you're there. Continue. But for me, it's taken me this long to kind of get to this point in life where business is good now. Family is good. Financially, I'm good. And to take on all these other things that I've been putting off for so long because of this journey, maybe moving up here and starting a business, blah, blah, blah. But that's what works for me and what I'm happy with now.
Well, think about it this way, Mike, when you're able to focus on yourself. Think about if you didn't have your health. So we're going to talk and that was a scare you had with the skin cancer. You had a couple of situations.
Yeah, that was recent.
Well, think about that now. I hope you're focusing on your health, because it doesn't matter how your business is running. It doesn't matter everything if you're not physically able to be. For example, if something comes along, you pass away, if something would have been avoidable, or you're immobile, or you develop diabetes because of your, not you personally, but just saying somebody because of their because they're eating out all the time, or you're morbidly obese, just so you can't move. Like, it doesn't matter about the business if you're not able to be there for your family or yourself.
Exactly.
So if you don't mind sharing, what happened with you? Like, you message one day, I'm like, oh, they go, I'm just getting rid of some skin cancer. I'm like, what the fuck you don't just message me on like, oh, I just got rid of some skin cancer. Like,
quick in and out.
Yeah. And it was like the second time you were saying too, right? Is that right?
Well, this was the first major case. So it was basal cell carcinoma, but I've had some other spots removed that they weren't autopsied at the time. So most likely they could have been something. They're in the general vicinity.
So how did you find this, and what was the process?
It was just, I started going to, so again, being a business owner, leaving a corporate career and benefits to becoming a business owner over the last 5 years, not going to do a lot of the medical things that you should be because benefits aren't there. Right.
Right.
Basically just went into the doctor one day, and he's like, have you checked your body recently? And I'm like, no, I'm got a lot of moles. I'm a very freckly person. I grew up in the sun. Like, he's like, you really got to check. So the first year we did some checks, sent some stuff off for autopsy, nothing too bad. And then this past year I had a spot on my forehead here that was there for a while. And my wife, Nadia, she's like, dude, it looks like it's changing. You should go get it checked out. I'm like, really? So I went in, talked to the doctor, and recommended me to the dermatologist, and got it checked out and did the autopsy. And we found out that it was cancer. So literally right away, and, thank the Canadian healthcare system, as many grudges as I have with it. I was in and out in a day for the surgery. So my takeaway is, if you haven't ever had yourself or checked recently, go. And even something the dermatologist said was, especially the bottom of your feet. You're like, oh, my feet never see the sun. And it doesn't matter like what your skin color is, your complexion, nothing. We all receive UV rays from the sun, and things can go unchecked and undiagnosed. So just get yourself checked out, right? At the end of the day.
Bottom of your feet.
Yeah. You're very susceptible there, apparently.
Interesting.
I never would have thought that. So yeah.
So has that changed your perspective? How you looking on life after having that little scare?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's the takeaway is go get checked out, take care of yourself. Life is precious, right? And I think, I definitely have taken that for granted over the years, starting up a business, and that's something I just want to share.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, talk about soon we have to start wrapping up, but I wanted to say also how your business has changed into COVID, right? You went from, doing the video stuff too. And then I remember one time I called you and you're doing weddings all of a sudden. So how did COVID go before? How did COVID affect your business?
Yeah.
And are you still carrying throughout that tradition?
Yeah.
So the
backtrack to just before COVID. So that point of business, things were slowing down, and this was my, I think, second year in, 2.5 years in, and started getting into the wedding scene a little bit. I'm like, oh, there's some money here. Let me try this. My goal with starting a video production company was just trying everything I could to see what I liked. And so over the pandemic, we found out there was photographers, like literally, I spoke to Natalie, your wife, because she was into photography, and we found out there's people doing like something called the Porch Project. And literally photographers were going and taking pictures of people on Zoom calls with their families on their front porch. Yeah. And I was like, what? How are people making money with this? This is insane. So just with that, I started looking into other revenue streams for my business. And one of them was live streaming was picking up, obviously on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all that, but like professionally. So with a background in live event production, I used to do simulcast and broadcast work. And so I'm like, I've got all the camera gear. Why don't I just pick up a video switcher and start live streaming whatever? Mm-hmm. So I start marketing. It was, sales events, sales calls, product demonstrations.
My cigar event?
Your cigar event, which was like the coolest live stream I ever did. Scotch and cigars. Like, come on. That was awesome.
And then we did a big production. I think one year we did, it was awesome. It was so, and I totally forgot. We just, up until that point, you just sparked. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. So it was a few years, I think it was 2 years into COVID. And so for my clients, yeah. So for clients don't know, for my clients, for their fathers, I like to do, I started doing a Scotch and cigar night. I like Scotch and I like cigars. And we couldn't do it with a lot of people. So what I did is I sent cigars to my clients that are fathers, and I said, hey, like, enjoy this with a bottle of Scotch with me. And then we did a live stream with Mike, and that was cool. And like, we got them to ask questions and stuff too. And that was a really cool event.
Yeah, that was really the fun part. We had like multiple cameras. We had moving cameras. It was dynamic. We had people, texting it or typing in the chat box on YouTube, and we could pull the question up on the screen, and we do close-ups of you, and you guys would answer. It was like, it was next level for that time. Yeah. And now it's kind of mainstream. It's something that's being done right now, live switching on the fly with camera angles. But that was a huge revenue stream for my business. And so I started getting calls for weddings, believe it or not. And next thing I know, I'm doing professional live streams for weddings. And I did that hardcore for like 2 years. We're basically one of the top companies in the Niagara region. Yeah,
you can even come out for a beer with me on a Saturday night because you were working.
Booked solid. It was crazy. And but super fun, super unique. It still kind of happens. We don't do a lot of it. We don't really market it anymore. Now, I'm pretty set my ways with business. I've got a few key clients, which is a goal that I've been trying to reach with my company, is do less work and like have less clients, do less busy work, but also focus more on a few good clients, do good or great quality work for them, and really niche in on that. So that's kind of where we're at now, doing a lot of traveling all over North America for these clients and shooting. And we've got teams of editors now and all that. So it's taken a lot off my plate too. Editing is huge in the video production business, and being somebody that's, a one-man band that's trying to do everything over the last 5 years, I'm like, no, you got to delegate things to be great. You got to work with great people and have great teams. So that's been a big thing. So if you're looking at getting into that space, whenever you can, try and branch out and bring people on to help you, because that's ultimately going to make everyone and yourself great, your business great.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are your closing thoughts? But I think that's one. So again, we have to wrap up now. If you want somebody that's listening in here to take one good takeaway, whether it's you want to be an entrepreneur, get in your space, what is the one thing that you want these listeners to take away after listening to Mike Austin and 20 Valley Media is?
Yeah, for sure. The cliche is, follow your dreams, take that jump and find any way you can do it. However you can do it, just do it. The Nike slogan, right?
I love it. And
with all the content creation out these days, I get asked this all the time, like, what's the best way? Or Mike, I need the best camera, the best mic, whatever. I'm like, this right here in your pocket, your phone, this is the best thing. And one thing I tell everybody is, a lot of people buy the latest, greatest phone, and I'm like, it's not even maximized for your settings. So a lot of iPhone, as an example, out of the box, like one of the latest ones, it's basically the camera's set to 1080p, which is known as high definition. But a lot of these are touted as 4K, high resolution. So if you go into your camera settings, this will give you a little tidbit to walk away with. Go into your camera settings and select 4K for your highest resolution. You're now going to get the best out of your phone. That 4K is going to be right on par with like a $5,000 cinema camera that you can go buy. Obviously, it's a phone, and professional cinema cameras are a lot different, but start creating content. You've got the quality right here. Get a little plug-in mic for it. You've got the quality. Start making your own content. And that's really what's important. You don't need all the gear to do it. You have to be consistent. I think you've proven that over the years. Being consistent pays off. And that's a little takeaway.
Love it. And if somebody, what's the best way for somebody to see your content?
Yeah, if you want to check us out, Instagram at 20 Valley Media. That's spelled out TWENTY. You can check us out on our website, 20valleymedia.com. That's it. Reach out.
And one more question before I forget. So you got me into TikTok and stuff. Is there something coming up that you think that most listeners should get on the bandwagon before it blows up? Or are you going to keep that to yourself?
Let's ask Gary Vee. Honestly, it rolls back into what I just mentioned, like being consistent with content.
No, I mean, is there an app, something coming out?
Oh, sorry. Like an actual?
No, nothing yet.
Right now, well, me personally, I don't need to market anymore, really. I don't want to toot my horn, but I think Instagram and personal website, and a big thing to have is a Linktree style. Yes. I guess Linktree is an app, but basically if you're not familiar with Linktree or other services like it, it's a web address or link that you go to. And from there's basically a list that will give your customer or client or whomever different avenues to direct you to different things.
Yeah.
So
again, you're the one who introduced me to that. If you go on my Instagram, David Vicinelli _realtor, if you want to see these podcasts and videos, we click on the link tree. Everything is there for them.
Yep.
So that's why you're the one.
So
that
no matter what platform you have, you're
amazing.
controlling everything from your head end, and it's going to direct it out.
Love it
for everybody. Yeah.
Thanks again, Mike, for coming.
Thank you.
And everybody, if you're tuning in, you like what you're seeing. Again, we always try to get as many listeners as we possibly can, and lots of content. So like, subscribe wherever you're watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, shoot us a comment if you want any questions to ask. If there's any topics you want us to talk about, we love that as well. If there's a guest you want me to bring on, I get a lot of people asking, what about this person too? So we love that. Keep that happening, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.